Yeah, hello, hello once again. Welcome to another video, uh, post on behind behind closed doors. Thank you for those who subscribed and liked and took our time to read or watch the videos that I have posted, and to those who are just getting to watch this for the first time. Please, when you're done, um, hit the subscribe button, like the video, and above all, please share it to, because there's one person out there, at least one person who could do with a message like this. Like I always say, this isn't it's a platform that's going to really talk about issues like relationships, parenting, and life, and then my journey with dystonia. I'm really thankful. The manual for life says, in every circumstance give thanks. So I'm thankful not for the circumstance, but while I'm in it, I'm thankful, and that's the choice I make every day, every morning I wake up. Right now, uh, this thing is just nasty. Feels like I've broken my jaw. Um, and the last time it happened, it was so severe that I was rushed to the ER. It's one of these things. I have a high threshold for pain, but this is just excruciating. If you've never had your jaw broken before, yeah, it's times three. Um, I've had to go look for pain meds so I can make this video. Um, I'm gonna try and give it content. Yeah. So I started my last video was on giving, and I know that's a topic that's kind of dicey because in all fairness, there's a saying that what you earn makes a living, but what you give makes a life. Something to that effect. Um, but the manual for life, written one of the quotes by undeniably one of the wisest men that ever walked the face of the earth, King Solomon. In Proverbs 11:24, he says, "There's one who scatters, yet increases more, and there's one who withholds more than is right, but it leads to poverty." Now the beautiful thing about that verse is, it says there's one who scatters. It doesn't put a cap. There's no qualifier to that. But the latter part of that verse says, and there's one who withholds more than is right. And so, basic English grammar says that there's um, a portion that you withhold. That's okay. I mean, there's a qualifier to that. There's a right way of withholding, and there's a wrong one. And when we fail to understand that, then we'll run into prioritizing our gifts over the giver, and trying to hold on to that which we can keep, you know. And so it's really not about how much you have, it's just the willingness to share what you have. That's what really matters. I usually tell people, whenever the subject of giving comes up, I say, you worked for your money, so I'm not going to tell you how to spend it, and the times when I've had to ask for help, which I'm still learning how to, because it requires humility. You don't ask with ego. And times when I've had to ask people, I tell them, I'm not depending on you. And this is no pun intended. Right? But I say I'm not depending on you, because depending on man is not sustainable. And so I say I'm not depending on what you give me, but I'm trusting that God would use you to give me. So ultimately my trust is in God, not in man. Even though we are instruments of Him, at His behest. Growing up, my dad, he did a little bit of traveling himself. He used to say, whenever you travel out, he said, watch out for the 3 C's. So back in his time, the 3 C's stood for credit, calls, because international calls, were really expensive then, and then cars. He said, watch out for those three C's, and if you're able to control them, you'd make life would be so much easier. There's this, I think it's a West African adage that says, wealth is like water. It trickles. You can collect it in a basin, but if the basin is leaking, before you know it, it's the whole thing is the whole thing you've packed up is lost. But in the course of my own travels, the C's stand for credit, cups, and courts. These 3 C's, if you don't watch it, before you know it, you become a servant to money. And that's where, things like the love of money is the root of all evil. And I talked about, God not comparing Himself with anything but money. And He says, choose you this day whom you will serve. You cannot serve money and serve God. You have to serve one. You have to pick one. And so the onus lies on us, whether we like to admit it or acknowledge it or not. The onus lies on us to make that choice. Do we want to be ruled by what we cannot keep? Do we want to be governed by our wealth? Or do we want to exchange it for something that is much more eternal? It's again, it's like someone coming with a gift, and then you take the gift and you don't even say thank you to the giver. So it requires wisdom, and it's giving is sacrificial. Yes, you give. I talked about giving with consideration. If someone approaches you for $1,000, and you have, okay, let me share this. There's this business associate I had back in the days when I was when I could work, and his wife, he's a Jew. His wife is from the Caribbean, and so we kind of stuck up, got together, and till today he still calls. Um, and then another mutual thing is his wife is also suffering from some neurological disease. So it's financially draining. I can't. I really can't express how expensive just managing dystonia is. But it takes almost everything. And I reached out to this chap, but I said, I need to do something. I can't recall. And he said, okay, I can't recall how much I asked him for. And he said, hey, Ryan, I tell you, he's into real estate. He said, Ryan, I tell you, if you tell me, Keisha, that's his wife. Well, he said, my wife is in the hospital and she's really in a bad way. And I don't really have much, but I'll send you what I can. And so he sent it to me. But when he sent it to me, I didn't ask him for proof. I don't know why people do that. I guess it's so that, to confirm that, or to make you understand or realize that they've given you something. So he took a screenshot of the receipt and he sent it to me, but he forgot to blot out the his account balance, and it was funny because what he told me was, he had like it was 6 figures in his account, and he sent across 50 bucks. I thanked him. Of course, I thanked him, because again, there's this West African proverb. I think it's Igbo. It says when you go visit someone and the person offers you chicken. It says if you express so much gratitude for that chicken, the next time you go visit that same person, he's going to do more than that. He'll probably kill a goat just to serve you. So learning to be thankful, it's vital to our existence. Just as spiritual beings walking, going through this human experience, because this is not the end of it. I wanted to share an experience I had when with regards to money, and this was when I was when I was living in London. I needed to travel, and because of the Estonia, I can't. Once the trip is more than an hour, I can't fly economy. So I fly business class, not because it's flamboyant. No, it's health. It's I recall someone I knew long, a couple of decades ago. When he saw me, he said, "What? Why do you always having?" No, he said, you're a rich man. Look at the kind of sickness you have. It's a big man sickness and all that. So I needed to travel, and the cost of the airfare was, I think back then it was like £2,000, and I gathered everything I had, and I was only able to come up to 800 pounds. So I had a shortfall of 1,200. Now by training, I'm logical, temperamental wise, I'm more choleric than melancholic, and so I try to approach issues rationally and logically. And so I needed 1,200. And so I prayed and I said, and I told God, I said, you had 12 disciples. Can you help me, just bring to my remembrance 12 people that I can approach that would give me £100. And honestly, I had a sheet of paper, and like I always say, Christianity is not a religion; it's a lifestyle of faith. And so I started writing down a list of names, and I think I got to number 5, and I just couldn't think up any other person, because again, there's more to life than meets the eye. And so that's why I prayed that, certainly this is a social media. The more you look, the less you see. All the glitters is not gold. And so I started from the church. People I knew in church, and people I knew in hospitals, because basically that's what my life still is. Currently it's. And so I got to the 5th name, and after that there was no I was coming up blank. And so I went and I met the 5 people, and came back with nothing. Just stories. I'm doing this. My tenant hasn't paid me. Again, no offense. No offense. If you have, you give. I say thank you. If you don't, I'll say thank you. Again, it's your money. It's not mine. I'm only asking. So 4 strikes, I was out. Nothing. Now the following Sunday, I so what used to happen was the church had a bus that would drive around and pick those of us who had disabilities, and so I used to attend the second service, and so we'll sit outside, waiting for the first service to end before we go in, sit in wheelchairs and all that. And there was this late female usher who kind of knew me. That's the thing with me. Anywhere I go to, it's like, sometimes I'm like, can I not go somewhere and people will forget me? And so this lady came around and she was like, Ryan, I thought you said you were traveling. I said, yeah. She said, so when are you traveling? I said, I'm trusting God for the fare. Now she was even one of the people I had written down. I had put down her name, and she said, "Oh, okay. You're trusting God, okay? Okay. So, how much is how much have you been able to put together?" I said, "Well, I'm trusting God for £1,200." Now recall that I said I had asked God to give me 12 names, and I was only able to come up with 5, and the 5 nothing. And this was somebody who wasn't even on the list. She was an usher, and so she went into church, and then she came back, and then she squatted beside me. Then I had this neck brace, and still now I can't even, like I have limited mobility to my neck, or in my neck. So she kind of squatted to my right, and she held my hand. So I thought she was going to pray. She wanted to pray with me, and I realized she was putting paper in my hand, and I wanted to bring it up. She said, don't make a scene. So I'm like, what? I didn't know something was going on. And so I raised up my hand, and she had she had folded a check. And she had written out a check. Because she had asked me, how do you buy your ticket? I said, I usually use an agent. I have a travel agent that I use. And so she had written a check for £1,200, just one person. I wasn't on the list. my incomplete list. She had written a check for £1,200, and again, I lost it. And she told me, she said, Ryan, I never come to church with my checkbook. I never. She said, but over the weekend, and again, this is not I don't want people scoffing at this. This is my story. It's my opinion. Again, everything I'm sharing, it's something I've lived through. And then again, if I'm sharing an opinion, it's mine. It's not sacrosanct. I share my perspective on stuff. Save for when I'm talking about, when I'm referring, when I get something from the Bible, the manual for life. And so she said, over the weekend, she said, I don't, as a rule, I don't bring my checkbook to church. And in hindsight, I understand, because it's sad, but the church isn't what it used to be. The church ought to be a place of warmth and refuge and welcome. But these days, it's just, it's more of what can we get from you, rather than what, if there's a need and you approach the church, their stories. I mean, I could recount a couple here. And so she said, over the weekend, she just had this feeling, her conscience, her spirit was telling her, take your checkbook to church, take your checkbook to church. And she said she just couldn't shake off that, that instinct, or the leading. That's what I refer to it. She couldn't shake off that reading, and so she came to church with her checkbook, and lo and behold, that was why, her spirit telling her come to church with a checkbook, because God needed her to write a check for me. Now this was just one person. It wasn't even the church. But that's just one of the many ways that I have encountered generosity, and it has taught me more about giving. It has taught me that when you hold fastly to stuff, there's really no room, or you do not have the capacity to receive. And so it's tough, everyone's got issues. Giving is sacrificial, because even if you want to give someone $10, you could use that $10 to buy Starbucks. I stopped taking coffee, so I don't even know how much it costs. I mean, you could use that to buy gas. You could use that to get something. So the fact that you're able to give out that $10, if it's $10 to someone else, you sacrifice it. Economics is called opportunity cost. You've let go of something in order to give, and so there's something about that. I just wish we could really understand that in giving we create room to receive. I'm not saying give, but I've heard weird stuff. I've heard people say, if I give somebody twice, I'm not going to give the third time. And I'm like, so if someone approaches you, no, once I give twice, I can't give a third time. Well, that's you. I mean, I've given in this situation, this peculiar circumstances that I'm in. I've given, and I've lost people that I've given monies to, to cover health, because of their medical issues. And I've had friends pass away, but I have no regrets. I actually lost someone who was who attended college with me. I was fortunate to be the class president, and we have this. They have this group, WhatsApp group, that I really go to because I'm not a fan of WhatsApp groups really. But that day, I also suffer from mild OCD, so I don't like seeing. So I actually disabled WhatsApp, so I don't get notifications, except I go to the app itself. If you send me a message, I wouldn't know. So my apologies to those who sent me WhatsApp messages, and I've delayed in responding. It's because I haven't read it, I haven't seen it. Because anytime I see it, I must respond. And so I just popped into the group, and did I pop into the group, or someone called me and said, this guy is going through tough times, and so I said, give me his number, and because for me that's what I do, even if I have to give, I still call, and I tell people, giving is not only about money. Sometimes sometimes it could just be what that person needs. Money will help, but just a friendly call. So I called this chap, and I told him, introduced myself, and he screamed, how long time is it you? I said, yeah, I said, yes. So I said, what's going on with you? He said, oh gosh, that he doesn't know, and I asked him, said, so are you married? He said, no, not yet. And this chap was like 47, and I said, what's going on with you? And he said, oh, yeah, it's the devil. It's the devil. I just came down from the mountain. I was fasting for 13 days, and this was somebody who, while we were in college, he couldn't even spell Christian, and it's kind of funny when people are going through tough times. That's when they remember that there's God. And so this chap says, oh, I just finished 13 days fasting. And I'm like, have you been to the hospital? He said, where's the money? I said, have you been? Have you even attempted to, try and get a diagnosis? Because people fail to understand that there's reality and then there's faith. If you don't acknowledge reality, you can't really apply faith. And so he says, and so I said, go to the hospital. God created medicine. So go to the hospital and see a doctor. He said, I don't really have. And so I sent him, what I had, and he was very appreciative. And so the next, so he kept on calling me, and I told him, I said, see, I'm going through stuff myself. I need money, but I believe that you need it more than I do. And so when he called again, I was asking him, I said, were you able to use the money? Were you able to go to the hospital? We're able to go to the hospital at least to get the diagnosis, so we know what's going on. And he said, and this guy literally broke down the amount I gave him and what he used it for. And it was funny, because this was a free will gift. I mean, nobody's obligated to give you money or give you, but he told me what he spent, and it was like, it's not even enough to get him a meal, so why would he spend it going to the hospital? But I was glad that I gave, because the next day this chap passed away, and I was glad that I gave, because even when he analyzed it, I could have been offended. This is me giving you, even though I need the money, and then now you're analyzing how you spent it and why it's not even enough. But I just laughed it off. And this guy, he passed the next day, and I was thinking, and I was thankful that I was able to give him, when it mattered. And so, let's have a retake on, let's have a rethink on that. Like I said, I'm in so much pain. I'm getting tired of hospitals. Gosh, you know. So I'm gonna wrap it up here, and hopefully, continue again the next time. And I would appeal to you to please subscribe, like, and share, and share this too, because there's someone out there who could do with a boost of positive, boost of encouragement. And so till I come around for another episode on this platform, I just want to tell you to keep your chin up, because the fact that you're breathing, the fact that you're watching this video is proof that God is not done with you yet. All right then, bye.